Let's open up our Bibles to Proverbs chapter 10. And let's pray. Father, again, we are so grateful for the gift of your word, how you have given us everything that we need pertaining to life and godliness, that you have given us so much instruction, not just on your principles, but how to take those principles and apply them to the situations of life. So I pray today as we come to your word that we would be humble, that we would tremble at your word, so that your heart may be inclined to us. In Christ's name, amen. So last week, as we began here in chapter 10, we are into the rest of the book of Proverbs, which is no longer discourses, but now these are the sayings. These are the ones that are just, they're meant to, again, what's the idea of a proverb? What's the purpose of a proverb? Short, memorable, and it communicates a truth. And it's meant to lodge inside our thinking. It's the kind of thing that it should be one of these that when someone starts the proverb, in your mind, you can finish it. It's meant to be something that's recallable at a moment's notice. Because isn't that how life is lived? You're in the middle of a situation that you're dealing with in real time. This isn't something where you can say, you know what, let me think about that for a week or two and come back. So many things in life are bang, bang. Someone says something, and I need to respond to this right now. And so much of responses aren't words, are they? Response is, what is the attitude of my heart as I am hearing this? Because some words, let's face it, some words are sharp. They hurt. So what's going to be the response of my heart as I'm dealing with this? What is going to be the look on my face as I'm dealing with this? If I were to come to you I am full of the joy of the Lord. No, it doesn't sound like it, and it sure doesn't look like it either, does it? And so much of communication is not just the words that we speak, it's the look on our face. It's the tone of voice that we're using. And God is wanting to sanctify all of those. It's not just what we say, although what we say is very important, but also how we say it, what is being communicated in addition to our words. And all of those things, all of that happens in real time. And so these proverbs, they're meant to be able to be pulled up so that it's influencing what I say, what I do, how I think in the moment. So last week we started making our way through these. And again, I don't want to rush them. I don't want to belabor them. We had a meeting the other day and somebody made the comment, okay, the horse is sufficiently dead. We can move on to something else. But nor do we want to just blow through these. So I believe that last week we ended up with verses 4 and 5. Poor is he who works with a slack hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a son who acts insightfully, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who acts shamefully. So what do you have being compared there? Okay, so you have one who is diligent and you have one who is lazy. And in Hebrew, it's actually you have one who stores and you have one who snores. It is it's recognizing that there's opportunity here to make provision for a time where provision is not readily available. So it's setting aside for the future time. It's not just living in the now. So much of our culture now is living in the now. And there is some truth to that. I can remember when I was still in the fire department, working in the arson unit, I can remember coming home and there were days that were long days. If I have spent all day going through a fire scene with dead kids, when I come home, I'm still processing what's been going on all day. Yet, what else is happening when I come home? There's been somebody who's been waiting for me to get home all day. And there were times I think I did okay, but there were times when I did not. There is the thing of being able to set this aside in order to be able to deal with what's going on right now, right here. I'm sorry? Oh, sometimes that's not easy, but again, it's necessary. So, if I'm someplace, I need to actually be where I am. I can mentally be someplace else. It's being present and dealing with what's in front of me at this moment. Verse 6, blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked covers up violence. And then with that, the remembrance of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. So what are we contrasting here? Remember, these next chapters, 10 through 15, are mostly contrasts. So one of the things that's helpful for figuring out how do I use this thing, what's being contrasted? So here in verses 6 and 7, what's being contrasted? Okay, so on the one hand, you have the righteous. And on the other hand, you have the wicked, which are about, that's about as diametrically opposed as you can get, right? Blessings are on the head of the righteous. The mouth of the wicked covers up violence. When you talk about blessings, when Solomon uses the term blessings, when the psalmist uses the term blessing, what's he getting at? Okay, people have a good opinion of you. Okay. All right. God's favor. What is, when you talk about blessed is the man whose sin is forgiven? Happiness. So oftentimes when you see the word blessed, especially in the Old Testament, actually, you can do that the same in the New Testament when you talk about the Beatitudes. Blessed is the man. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed. It's the idea of happy. Now, what's the concept of being happy? Okay, there's peace. There's peace with God. There's harmony. Contentment. There's a great word. That's a loaded word. So, showing the quality of, okay. When you talk about contented, satisfied. not just being at peace with God, being at peace. There's this idea here of someone who is settled. It's the idea of someone who is, things are right. Now, for the righteous, does that always mean that things are calm? Okay, there's a distinction, isn't there? Because you can be in the midst of difficulty, yet can you still be at peace? You can be in the midst of turmoil. So yesterday there was a memorial service here. Many of you were there. When you have a memorial service, what necessarily has occurred for there to be a memorial service? There's death. And oftentimes with death, there's a lot of upheaval. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of moving pieces. Yet, even in the midst of something like that, can there be peace? So it's not, again, peace is not just being the absence of conflict. Peace then being a settlement of soul in the midst of all of that. So blessings are on the head of the righteous. The mouth of the wicked covers up violence. When you're at peace, when you are right with God, do you have to be looking over your shoulder? But what's the state of the wicked? They're always on the lookout. Yeah, there's always, you're always wondering, is there somebody looking to do to me what I do to other people? Is there someone looking to come and get a little payback because of something that I've done to them? And what's the idea of violence in the mouth of the wicked?
To make trouble.
Okay, so making trouble, fear, instigating fear. It's again, it's not constructive effort. It's how can I get something for me at someone else's expense? Solomon's already had stuff to say about that, doesn't he? When you obtain riches unlawfully, then they don't prosper. One reason they don't prosper is you didn't obtain them in a rightful manner. So this is desirable. Would you rather be in consistent and constant conflict, or would you rather be contented and in peace and harmony? Now, one would think that is a rhetorical question. One would think. Yet, do you sometimes find yourself tempted? We even have a saying for that, right? I'm going to stir things up a little bit. You remember Fiddler on the Roof? Tevye, he told him that the horse was really 6, but it was really 12. But now everything is quiet and peaceful again. And then he goes over and he just whispers, it was 12. It was 6. And what happens? All of a sudden now here's this huge argument. And everything's just blasting off. And what does Tevye do? He walks away. He stirred stuff up. He got the hornets nice and going at each other. And he walks away. Peace and contentment and happiness are certainly better than violence. The remembrance of the righteous is blessed. At the memorial yesterday, there was no shortage of people who were willing, who could stand up and say things that were honorable, say things heartfelt, and bring up the memory of Donna Cummins. If you spent time around her, you saw all of those things, and so many of them got spoken of yesterday. There are people, there are a lot of people who miss her. And there's a reason to miss her. Her memory, her memory is blessed. Who wants to name their kid after Adolf Hitler? I would have no problem having a grandchild named Donna, a granddaughter named Donna. Because every time I thought of that name, who am I going to think of? Now, eventually it would be my granddaughter. But initially, oh yeah, that's tied over here to this person, and that's a blessed memory. The name of the wicked will rot, as it should. What does it say in Hebrews about Abel? Come on, think. I know you know this. He being dead still speaks. When you think of Abel, I'm talking about Abel as in Cain and Abel, what do you remember? What immediately comes to your memory of Cain? Okay, he murdered his brother. He murders his brother. Why?
Jealousy.
Okay, jealousy. Why?
Because his brother had a preference because he was good and he was doing his job and he's being rewarded.
Okay, so God had given instruction as to what was to be brought as an offering. Abel follows that instruction, and God blesses him. Cain does not follow that instruction, and God rebukes him. And Cain's not happy about that. And so there ends up being conflict between him and his brother. Abel is, when you think of Abel, you think of obedience. God told him what he should do. He did it. And ultimately, he paid a price for that. When did Abel live? It wasn't last week, was it? Seeing as he is one of the first, when you talk about the first two people being born in the human race, at least the first two that are recorded, you have Cain, you have Abel. And so this is thousands of years ago. Yet, you can still read of Abel. Why? It's been recorded for us. Anytime you see something in the Bible, there ought to be a question that goes through your mind. What's that question? Why is this here? Why was this written? Because why were all of these things written for us? They're for our learning. They're for our example. So every conversation that's been recorded, it's here, and it's here for a reason. Every genealogy, even the genealogies, they're here for a reason. So every conversation, every instance. So here's somebody who did well, it's recorded. Here's somebody who did poorly. Those are recorded also for our benefit. Are there benefits to peaceful living? Keep your finger in Proverbs 10 and flip over to 1 Thessalonians 4. See, now here's one of the beauties of Proverbs. When you study Proverbs, you're going to end up in all the other books as well, at one time or another. We'll start in chapter 4, we'll start in verse 9. Now, concerning love of the brothers, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. For indeed you do practice it toward all the brothers who are in all Macedonia. You don't need me to tell you this, because you've already gotten it from God and you're already doing it. So this isn't something that you've just heard. This is something that you're putting into practice, and it's in your entire region. But we urge you, brothers, to excel still more. That's where, again, that's why you keep having instruction, even when there's something that we're doing well. There are a lot of things that we do well here. People practice one another's with each other here. And that's a good thing. Don't rest on your laurels, right? Excel still more. So Paul, what do you want him to do? Verse 11, and to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life and to tend to your own business and work with your hands just as we commanded you, so that you will walk properly toward outsiders and not be in any need. So, what you should be looking to do is you have a quiet life. You're not boisterous. You're not in your face with other people. You're taking care of your business, meaning you don't have to be supported by somebody else because you're working with your own hands. And again, who did the Thessalonians have as their example for doing just this? Say it louder. Paul himself. Because what did Paul do? He was a tent maker. Paul vocationally supported himself so that churches did not have to. He was able to come in and he was able to preach and to teach freely, meaning that there was no acceptance that somehow they were going to have to do something for him. There's no quid pro quo here. I am able to minister for the cause of Christ. I am able to present and to teach the gospel, and I can do it without charge. Lead a quiet life so that you'll walk properly toward outsiders. There's no welfare mentality here that somehow I'm owed something by someone else. Okay, back in Proverbs. This is one to memorize. Okay? This is one to memorize. The wise of heart will receive commandments, but an ignorant fool of loose lips will be ruined. What's the contrast here? Okay, so there's a difference here. There's the wise and there's the fool. And what is the dividing characteristic? Okay. How do you receive instruction? Now, this ought to be triggering things in our heads. What verse might you go back to? I'll give you a hint. It's the theme verse for the book. So what's the theme verse for the book? Don't look down, look up. 1:7. And 1:7 says? Discipline and instruction. So the fear of the Lord, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. Ignorant fools despise wisdom and discipline. So, we've got to review again. What is discipline? Look up 3 words. Oh. Okay. Instruction with correction. So again, just think that when you think of discipline, think of practice. The purpose of practice. So this morning, something goes on up here before Sunday school. What's going on up here? Music team is practicing. What are they doing? Okay, they're going over the music. And the purpose of going over the music is what? Is there a problem? Is there a problem area? Is there a problem with how the notes are being played? To work that out, for what end? So when they are doing these songs in another hour, that they're doing it correctly. If you have a mistake, you want to correct the mistake before you're actually doing it for real. The same thing applies with discipline. I've been instructed as to what is right, and God brings correction to me when I don't follow the instructions. That instruction comes to me how? How does the correction come? Well, I'm sorry? Okay, verbally, from who? Okay, there may be a person in charge. It may be somebody that you're with. Those of us who are married, we run into this one all the time now, don't we? And I don't mean that in a bad sense. That's a gift of God to us. That there is someone who is close to us, who loves us, but who can bring things to our attention. That's where you get the idea of admonishment. What does it mean to admonish? You're bringing something to someone's attention. You're bringing this in front of them. What does it mean to reprove? This is where you're wrong. This is where you're messing up. This is what is right. This is what you're doing. This is how it's violating what's right. What does it mean to rebuke? Well, it's not to push away. What's the idea of rebuke? Say it, I'm sorry. Well, putting in the mind is admonishment, but it's similar to that, right? What does it mean to rebuke? You're putting it right in front of them, and it's sharper. Michael the archangel is contending with Satan about the body of Moses in the book of Jude. It's referenced in the book of Jude. And yet, Michael did not bring a railing accusation against the devil, but what did he say? The Lord rebuke you. The Lord bring this and put it in front of you, and it's sharp enough. It's the idea of, it's not just bringing it, it's no. You need to hear this. It's ratcheting up a notch from just admonishment or reproof. This is a little stronger. Yeah, so Sam is talking about Peter when Peter is resisting Jesus. When Jesus is talking about, the Son of Man is going to suffer, and what does Peter do? No. And Jesus' response to him is what? Get behind me, Satan. Anybody want to be referred to as Satan? If Jesus said that to you, might that get your attention? When we don't, Here's another word here that I want to put into your mind. When you talk about somebody who is wise receives instruction. What's another term that you can put there to talk about that characteristic? A wise person is humble, but what else are they? They're teachable. A wise person is teachable. So, when you find yourself being reproved, what's your response to the reproof? It should be. It should be that if somebody brings something to my attention, that I stop. I don't just react to the words that are coming to me. I ask those three little words. Anytime somebody brings something to my attention, I got to ask the three little words. What are the three little words? Is it true? If it's true, the tennis ball has been struck, and it is now in my court. Now I got to do something with it. If I'm wise, I'm teachable. I can hear the reproof and realize this is true, and I need to change something. I need to respond to this. I need to be able to be corrected by this. Go ahead.
Part of this for me is I keep kind of, the scripture that keeps coming to my mind is slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to anger. I think I have those in the wrong order.
That's all right. You got all three of them.
Yeah, and I think this idea of the prating fool, they're just talking, they're just be quiet and listen. And I think if it's that kind of posture, then you're able to hear. If you're thinking what you're going to say, someone is saying something to you, you just need to stop and listen to what they're saying and hear it so that you can see what part you have to own of it and not just be ready to lob the next thing.
Okay, so Susie's point here is the idea of the prating fool is one who's just always babbling. They're always contrasting. They're always, they're just quick to lob back. As soon as that ball, they're playing hot potato. They don't want to get caught holding it. Yet, rather than just kicking things back, we need to stop. Oftentimes, shut up. Listen. Ponder. Because if it's true, then if this is not about them, it's about me. A wise person, if you reprove them, what's their response to you? They'll thank you. They will love you for doing that because you're bringing something to their attention in which they are short. They're wrong. They're not dealing with this properly. And they will go, by them correcting that and fixing a flaw of getting rid of something that is a detractor, what's happening to them? I am being made wiser still, right? The wise person, you reprove them, you rebuke them, they're going to get wiser still because they're going to take what you have to say and they're going to take it to heart and they're going to put it into practice. On the other hand, if someone comes to me and says, are you aware that you are doing A, B, or C? And the first response of my heart is to just spit back, you know what, you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny. What did I just do? I responded out of anger. Did I actually address the concern that's been brought to me? No. I don't acknowledge it. In fact, again, so often, I'm not going to deal with the issue. I'm going to make the issue whoever brought the message to me. So now if I find myself doing that, there ought to be a little bell going off. And what is that bell warning me of? Am I being wise or am I being a fool? If I'm acting like a fool, that's not good. That's no bueno. This is Danger Will Robinson territory. So many of these things are given to us so that we can recognize in ourselves what's going on. Did David always act? Did David always act in a wise fashion? So, for instance, when David, at the end of his life, is wanting to make a census of the nation, who was he resisted by? Joab. Now, is Joab a good guy? Oh, now, see? And listen, the example was chosen intentionally. What ended up happening to Joab? Okay, when David dies, David's dying, he's giving final instructions to his son Soloman, and one of those instructions is, you execute Joab. Why? Because Joab had assassinated Amasa and Abner. And David classified those two men as what relative to Joab? They were more righteous than he was. Yeah, those were killings that should not have been done. In fact, they were actually contrary to instructions that had been given. Keep in mind, who was Joab relative to David? I think he's a cousin. It might be nephew. But he's related by blood to David. They're related by blood. Should David have listened to what Joab had to say? Joab is not a righteous guy. But his reasoning for standing in opposition to the census was righteous. David, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. The only reason you would want to do this is because of some unrighteous desire on your part. Now that's reading between the lines a little bit, but not much. Not much. David should have listened to him, despite the fact he's not the best messenger. You wouldn't necessarily think of Joab being the guy to carry an actual righteous admonishment. And David blew him off. David didn't always act in a righteous fashion, a wise fashion. Now, who in here is somehow exempt from that? Good. There's no hands going up, and mine ought not be up either. I'm not exempt from that. I can choose to do something wisely. I can, I can also make very foolish choices. This is one of those little tripwires that makes it to where I can look at myself. Am I choosing wisely? Well, if I'm choosing wisely, then I should be acting in this type of fashion. If I'm not acting in this fashion, I'm being foolish. If I am resisting instruction, I'm being a fool. If I'm hearing it, that's being wise. This idea of being ruined is being thrust down. So this is actually becoming a little more common now in our culture. because you have a bunch of people who somehow think it's okay to egg on police officers. Well, sooner or later, if you're walking up to a riot cop, and by riot cop, you know what I mean, right? He's in his riot gear. He's got a shield. Most police officers, there's a baton that's carried on a daily basis. Well, if you're dealing with a riot, it's a longer baton. Why do you have a longer baton? Yeah, it's range. It gives me more reach. I can be further away from you and still try to knock some sense into you. So when people are running up and, throwing themselves, what happens eventually if you keep, running up on somebody and throwing yourself up against them? Sooner or later, they're going to put you on the ground, and they're not going to do it gently. That's the idea of being thrust down. That's the picture here of the fool. Eventually, the fool, because he keeps acting foolishly, he's going to get face planted. And rightfully so. In fact, we're going to run into it coming up here. Since a fool won't respond to verbal instruction, what's he need? He needs a rod for his back. He won't respond to verbal. He still needs to get the message. So you take it up to the next level and you thump him. Verse 9, he who walks in integrity walks securely. But he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. He who winks the eye causes pain, and an ignorant fool of loose lips will be ruined. Now, gee whiz, we just had that sentence, that phrase used up a couple verses, didn't we? So, he who walks in integrity walks securely. He who makes his way crooked will be found out. What's the contrast? Okay, it is black and white. Between what? Okay, you have one who walks in integrity. So this is your manner of conduct. Whenever you see the term, one who walks in, what's the idea of walking? Yeah, how you live. I'm sorry. Your manner of life. That's what, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. Ephesians 4. Meaning, act like you're supposed to be, like who you're supposed to be. So it's how do you conduct yourself? So what does it mean to walk in integrity? Yeah, so integrity, the idea of being who you are when nobody's watching. That used to be used in another way too. That's the idea of character. Character is who you are, and it's not just a show. So integrity, meaning what other synonyms might you have for integrity? What other synonyms are actually used in Scripture for integrity? Righteousness. Who said upright? That's the one I was actually thinking of. When you walk uprightly, you're walking in a manner that it doesn't matter who's watching. You don't have anything to hide. Since most of us have kids, Johnny's been in his room. Johnny, what are you up to? And all of a sudden you start getting evasion. Boy, when I start hearing evasion, what's the first thing that comes to my mind? What are you hiding? You know, when somebody typically, that's why, again, here's a little interrogation tool. When I was, I would be interrogating somebody, one of the things that I'm looking for is somebody here consistently is very detail-oriented. And I ask a question in a particular area, a hot spot, and they immediately get vague. When you're normally very detailed, and all of a sudden now you get vague, what does that indicate to me? This is a target-rich environment. There's something here to probe. We're going to dig a little bit here and see what we can find, because they're being evasive. When you walk in integrity, you don't have to look over your shoulder. Yeah, because if somebody catches me, they're going to catch me doing something right. They're going to catch me doing something well. But not everyone's like that. He who makes his way crooked will be found out. So what's the idea? One who's crooked, do they want you to be intimately familiar with their ways? No, right? Sure, they want it to be in secret, because if it's known, then somebody eventually is going to be able to put two and two together, and they're going to suffer consequences. So again, do you see all these little things, these little pithy sayings as they're coming out here? Are they for you or are they for somebody else? Okay, now, can I tell you something? I love to hear that, by the way. If you tend to point that it's about me, indicating places where I'm falling short, that's being wise. Making it always about somebody else, chances are it's because I'm trying to hide something, and the more I can make it someone else's problem keeps the attention off of me. Meaning, what am I being? I'm being a fool. So again, can these things be used to talk about someone? Absolutely they can. Absolutely they can. Can they be said about me? Boy, if it's showing up something here, then if I'm wise and all of a sudden I realize that I'm doing something foolish, then what would be my response? If I'm trying to be wise about this, well, I need to change this because this is not right. This is not something that's helpful. What does it mean to wink the eye? Okay, hiding. Okay, so if someone winks at you, now this is a way of putting it, especially of those of us that are a little older. I don't know if they do this with younger people now. Probably not. We were not quite so sophisticated in our youth. If I said something that I was presenting as true, but I wanted to give myself some wiggle room to get out of it, what might I have done in years past with my hand? Cross your fingers. Hey, my fingers are crossed behind my back. That gives me an out here, right? Okay? The idea of winking is similar to that. Oh, this is absolutely true. What does that mean? It's not true. It contradicts what I'm saying. And that whole idea there is it's corrupting something. It's taking something that on its face should mean this, but it's actually make it mean something else. Anytime you see Scripture talking about corrupting something, that's not good.
So it's like if I say, somebody says, oh, ask me, did you make these cookies? And I go, yes. Is that bad?
Well, I know you're trying to put that in as innocent a sense as possible. And okay, now look. Every one of us is going to fall here at one point or another, because men, do we not do this with our wives? Honey, what are you up to? Oh, I'm up to something. I just don't want you to know about it right now. It's a surprise for you. So if it's a surprise for you, how am I going to deal with it back over here? Am I going to be truthful? If I'm truthful, the cat's out of the bag. All right? And I'm not the only one who deals with this. Don't you look at me like I'm the only one who does this. Miss Laura, there was a surprise party thrown for you some time ago. Those of us who were aware of that surprise party, if we were asked questions about that, were we to answer truthfully? Okay, because the surprise is no longer a surprise now, is it? So again, this isn't something that's, should your yes be yes? Yes, it should be. Is there such a thing as a white lie? No, there's not.
No, I say that to my husband all the time. There's no such thing.
The idea, just recognize it for what it is. When somebody is winking, that's the idea that something that's being represented is not in fact that way. And should that be a manner of life for us? Now look, if you're throwing a surprise party for someone, you're going to have to come up with another explanation as to why certain things are happening. All right? There's a difference there between men. If your wife were to come to you and ask it, why is it that every time I walk in the room, you're changing what's on the screen on your computer? If that's true, is it happening because it's something she ought not see? Is it perhaps because what she ought not see might be something that is going to be embarrassing for you? That's where, again, we've got to be careful about presenting things as they ought to be. See in your notes, when you talk about walking securely, when you can walk securely, then you can walk in serenity. What's serenity? It's not just peace. It's settledness. I'm at peace because there is no turmoil. There's no turmoil because I got nothing to hide. If you see this, I can look at you truthfully. There's nothing to see here. It's when you're driving on the freeway. It happened this morning, coming here. I'm driving along, there's people passing me. And all of a sudden, brake lights. If people are passing you with speed, and all of a sudden you see brake lights, what should you expect to see in upcoming? Yeah, there's a cop somewhere. Sure enough, officer had somebody pulled over, and he's got his lights on. And everybody behind him is slowing down because why? They don't want to be next. The guy leaves one. Oh, I didn't even have to go trolling. There's another one going right here. Serenity is the idea it doesn't matter who's watching and when. Doesn't matter. Because they're not going to catch me doing something that I ought not be doing. So the idea of winking the eye, when you see that used in Scripture, it's the idea of being deceptive. I'm representing something as one way, but it's actually another. Yes?
I think that ties back to what you were asking earlier about the definition of being a person who's blessed.
Mm-hmm.
A person that's blessed is because he has a security that God's with him, and he's pursuing God, and he lives his life with integrity, and his path is set. He's walking on that path that pleases God. So he has God's approval.
Yes.
And regardless of circumstances, he stands where he needs to be and walks that path. So there's blessedness of not just being happy, but also God's approval in his life.
Okay, so the point that's being made is that one can be happy because they're walking in a fashion that would be approved by God. And in fact, the reason that they're happy is because they're approved and they know it. So I'm not worried. I don't have to worry. I'm not trying to pull a fast one on God somehow. How well does that work, by the way? It doesn't, does it? You know, trying to pull something over on somebody who knows everything and knows why I'm doing what I'm doing, good luck with that. Nathan.
Yeah, it reminds me of Adam and Eve in the garden after they
Yeah, Adam and Eve in the garden. So they sin, and what immediately happens? They're hiding from God. And Adam, where are you? Well, we're hiding over here because we're naked and we didn't want you to see us. Well, really? Who told you were naked? Did you eat of what I told you not to eat? You know, it's so... Who in here hasn't done that with your kids? Who in here? Especially the young kids, right? I don't think I ever did this with any of my teenagers. But the young kids. I think I've told you. Growing up, we would open up most of our presents on Christmas Eve, but then Mom and Dad in the middle of the night would bring down the really good ones. Now, I was pretty sure that it was Mom and Dad. So I remember one night, I was in my bed, I'm laying in my bed, and I never slept with my covers over my head, ever. But I've got my covers over my head, and I've got them raised in a little hole that I can peek through the hole and see who's coming. And sure enough, late at night, the light goes on, and here go my mom and my dad. And I remember I'm looking through the hole in the blanket, and my dad starts to go by, and I shut my eye real quick, and then I open my eye, and Dad had walked by, and he peeks his head back around, and he nails me. Busted. How hard was that for him? You know, I think now of things where I thought I was being so sly and pulling one over on Mom and Dad. And in reality, they knew exactly what was going on, right? Are we going to be able to pull anything over on God? No.
Jeff, I often say when I try to hide from God, it's like hiding under a glass table.
The comment being, you know, thinking of hiding from God as hiding underneath a glass table. Yeah. You're, everything you do is fully visible, right? Now, can I hide anything from God? No. Can I hide something from you? Yeah, I can. But can I tell you something? if we are hiding things from each other, number one, are we walking in integrity? If I'm not walking in integrity, then am I walking in serenity? No. Because what am I always going to be fearful of? The thing that I'm trying to hide from you to keep from your knowledge, if that comes out. Well, so trust. Well, how do you, first of all, is trust given or is trust earned? It has to be earned. Well, how do you earn trust? Yeah, you be trustworthy. You're demonstrating that you can be trusted. Well, and trusting others, that is something that they earn, but it's also something that when earned, I should give. Now, carry that through a little bit. If someone has demonstrated to me in the past that they love me, that they are concerned for me, then when they come to me with an admonishment or a reproof or a rebuke, what should enter my mind first? Well, listen, why? Well, this person has demonstrated in the past that they are for me. So if they're bringing something to me that is critical of me, then I ought not just react to the criticism, because who's bringing it? Someone who has demonstrated their care for me in the past. That ought to influence how I listen to what they say. It ought to. Yet, who's the person who is closest to me of anybody on the face of this planet? It's my wife, who has demonstrated to me times without number her love for me, her care for me. Yet, when she brings something to my attention, how often am I quick to reject what she has to say and somehow think that it's on her? It's not on her. Let's carry this one step further, and then we're going to stop for the morning. Do I live in such a way that someone would feel free enough to bring something to my attention? If I live in such a way that I intimidate others to make it to where they would not dare to bring something to my mind, is that on them or is that on me? Oh, that's on me. And you don't need to be a large person to be intimidating. So, again, see the goodness of God here. How many different ways we can come face to face with our own nature and have the ability to be able to take a snapshot and compare that to what ought to be. So if somebody brings something to me and I'm rejecting it out of hand, I'm being a fool. I'm acting foolishly. If somebody brings something to me and I turn it around and I make it about them, I'm being a fool. I'm not being wise. If somebody brings something to me and I just set it off, again, I can do it nicely, I can do it harshly, but at the end of the day, what did I do? I still rejected something that I should have been listening to. So it's not just for being able to point at someone else and say, looky, looky, looky. It's, yeah, do that in a mirror. Go to the mirror and point at the person in the mirror. Looky, looky, looky. Yeah, I ought to be. I ought to be. Father, again, thank you that you give us all of these things to be able to see where, frankly, we fall short. Thank you that we can have integrity. We can have blessing. We can have peacefulness. We can be settled. But that's only because we're in you. We've been redeemed. We've been set free from the power of sin and its penalty. That's of you. And thank you that you state this in so many different ways so that at least one of them can catch, so that we can see and we can be instructed. Help us to be those that are malleable in your hand, that we would walk humbly, that we would not be arrogant, that we would not be so convinced that our way is the right way and the only way. Father, help us to be gentle with each other, not just gentle in how things are presented, but gentle as to how they're received. Thank you that you've been at work in our midst. There have been so many things that can have conflict, and they haven't been here. I pray that you would help us to excel still more in that you would help us to be reprovable, that we would be correctable, and thereby just show so much more how your grace is at work in us. Thank you that your grace is sufficient. It's always enough. In Christ's name, amen.